Hey everybody, today we are talking about two books of part of Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation by Mo Xiang Tong Xiao. So I decided that I was going to review two at a time for these, and then the fifth book can be its own review. I have read the first two so far, and so let's just talk about these for now. I will just say that I do not speak Chinese. I only know a couple of Chinese words, very few, and since this is translated, there's a pronunciation guide at the back, there's a glossary for terms, there's character summaries, things like that, which are helpful, but I've also come across a lot of things online saying how correct is the pronunciation guide actually, and how well was this book actually translated. And that's just the downside that I will always have when reading things that are translated, is it's never going to be a direct translation for all parts of the book. There's going to be certain words that just don't really work in English, and so the meaning, and that could change the entire meaning of a sentence even. And so I know that I'm not even getting the full correct experience by reading these when I'm reading them in English, when that's not how they were originally written. So I understand that. Like, hopefully I am getting the gist of what the author was wanting me to get, even though I might be missing some things, because I did actually quite enjoy them. Once I got past that little hurdle in the first book, like trying to just remember things like who the character was that was talking at the time, or what part of the country they were in at the time, because there's a lot of terminology that I'm just not used to. Like, for example, each person could potentially have three names. They have a sobriquet, they have their birth name, then when they reach a certain age, they get a courtesy name, they get so many different names that sometimes, even within the same sentence or two sentences, they might be saying the courtesy name and then immediately saying the nickname right after that, and I have to just remember, oh, that's the same person, even though they just said a different name 2 seconds after they said that name. And that can be kind of confusing when you're not used to that kind of stuff. Once I started getting into it more and remembering who's who and just referring back to the character list to make sure which name is which person and stuff like that, I was starting to get a grasp on it better, and started to enjoy the story more. Then I started really getting into it when the first book goes into kind of like this flashback area, where we have our main two characters. These are basically our main two characters, which is Wei Wuxian and Lang Wangji. And this is Lan Wangji and this is Wei Wuxian. But I don't think this is actually what he looks like, because at the very beginning of the book, he actually is kind of reincarnated into this body, because this person here wanted to get revenge on some of his family members and community members, and so he gave up his soul basically so that Wei Wuxian's soul could go into his body and basically take over the body. So he didn't possess the body, he was given the body to take over. And so he had actually been dead for 11 years, and then all of a sudden he woke up and he was in this body. And so these two knew each other when he was alive in his regular body. And there's a part where they go into kind of a huge section of the middle part of the book is when they're juniors. So they're younger, and it's kind of when he first starts to become acquaintances with Lan Wangji, because they're not really friends, but they are. But it's a complicated friendship, because Wei Wuxian is just a really annoying person. He's just really annoying, wants to be the class clown, or he's very intelligent, but the way he goes about things makes him seem immature. And so it's that kind of personality that he has, it's kind of like a love to hate relationship. What I mean is that there are qualities about him that you're oh, I can't take this. He's so annoying. But then at the same time, you're like, oh, that was really clever, or that was funny, or oh, he's just trying to have a good time. He's just trying to relax the mood. And so it's like, you actually don't mind him that much. But Lan Wangji is he doesn't speak a lot. He's just very quiet. A lot of times the way he responds is, and that's it. He just doesn't have too much to say, or he would just say, like he would just get annoyed and just be like, stop, or go, or just like one word sentences when he got pushed to the breaking point from Wei Wuxian. And so, so that's it was kind of nice to see where they like first met and everything though. And it actually made me like our main character more. It made me like knowing his background more, and his background with this person made me like enjoy him more. So then when we go back to the present, he is with Lan Wangji. He ends up back in the Cloud Recesses, which is like where the Lan clan lives. Basically the book is about this dismembered body part that shows up, and they're trying to figure out like where it came from. And along the way they encounter things like fierce corpses, which are like dead corpses that have been awakened but they're controlled by somebody else. And then there's walking corpses, which are a little less harmless, but they're like dead and they're just walking around and stuff. But then there's also a difference between monsters, corpses, and ghosts. It's like that kind of stuff is like what they encounter throughout their journey, but their main task is to try to find all these disembodied parts and like put them back together to figure out why those parts are creating havoc on different places. So that's the main gist of it. Then I don't want to get too spoilery, so I'm just going to go on to the second book now, because their journey is just continually going. So now the second one, which I just very recently finished, it basically leaves off, it continues right where the other one left off. They are in the middle of finding more of these body parts. So they have been led, in this book, they have been led to a city that's very foggy and it's really hard to see anything. And they end up getting to a point where they find some of the juniors that they know, like a lot of, like 2 of them I think are from the Lan clan. So they're trying to figure out why this place is so foggy and so creepy and there's like nobody around, and because they believe there's another part of the body, that this disembodied body that they're trying to find is here. And so this city, the majority of the book, well, half of the book is in this city, and we kind of get to have another flashback. We kind of have 2 flashbacks in this book, but the way they do flashbacks, we're learning about another part of the story through the eyes of a person that experienced this, but it was years ago, so it's like flashback, but you don't feel like that when you're reading it. You feel like you're just in that time. In the first one, there is this woman who's blind and her tongue is cut off and she's dead and she's walking around Yi City, and they think that maybe she's trying to warn them about something. And so Wei Wuxian lets them in order to figure out what's going on, because she has her tongue cut out. She can't speak to say what's going on. He uses this power called empathy, and it basically allows her soul to go into him so that he can see through her what happened, so that he can understand what's going on. And so when he does that, he discovers that she wasn't actually originally blind. She is now, but originally she was born with white eyes that made it look like she's blind, but she actually could see, but she just went her whole life pretending that she couldn't. And so Wei Wuxian is able to actually see everything that happened. And it turns out that she became friends with this very popular cultivator who was like a good guy who was also ended up blind. He ended up blinding himself for reasons I won't share because that's spoilery, and you can learn that in the first book. That we learn about this cultivator, and we also learn about this other dude, Shu Yang, and he's not a good dude, and he killed a lot of people, and it seemed like there was no reason for that many people to die. These two are traveling together, and they find a man who is almost dead. The good cultivator, Xiao, he ends up wanting to just help this man who is hurt. And he doesn't know because he's blind. And the man who got so badly hurt, his voice is all like rattled and raspy. And so it's because of his injuries, you can't really tell who it is. But it ends up, it's actually Xu Yang. It's the bad cultivator dude. And they end up cohabitating while he's recovering. And this is like bad because this dude is surely gonna kill Xiao, but for some reason he doesn't. Wei Wuxian is seeing this through and feeling the emotions. He's understanding more and more of what's going on in Yi City because this is what happened in Yi City. And so all these years later, now Wei Wuxian and his group of people are in the city, and now he knows what's going on in that city has to do with these characters. And it's just interesting because he just learned about like what happened with these guys, and now he's placed right in this situation that involves all of these people, mainly these two cultivators, and now he understands everything of what happened, so he can share that with everyone else. So I really liked that segment of learning that. I just really like that part. And then there is another part in it where a similar thing happens again, not on purpose, but Wei Wuxian is trying to sneak into this place to see if they can find the head, because they have like all the other body parts of this disembodied person except for the head, and they think they know who it is based on the body movements. And so they're trying to figure out if they can find the head. And so Wei Wuxian does this little thing where he becomes a paper effigy. He becomes this little paper doll that can move while his body is laying at rest. But it's very risky and dangerous because if he gets ripped, he's going to die in real life. So he has to be very, very, very careful not to get hurt when he's in this little paper form. But it allows him to go through doors, like slip under them and do all this stuff. So he ends up going somewhere. And it turns out that while he's there, he gets sucked in by this negative energy that is so strong that it puts him into a kind of similar to like empathy, where he's now seeing things through another person's eyes, through the person that they think this body is. And so now we have another kind of flashback area where we're learning about two characters, more of them growing up together and how they became sworn brothers with another character, Lan Zishan, I believe. And so they have a sworn brotherhood, and we're figuring out how that happened and everything that happened and why this person is dead and why the other person is alive, all through this, like him being able to see all this stuff. So it's very fortunate that he's learning all this information of all the things that happened while he was dead. It's basically catching him back up, so he knows what's going on now. And I should have said this way earlier, but the idea is to keep his identity hidden, because the reason he died, we learned this like right at the beginning of the first book, so it's not necessarily spoilers. We find out that he was not, he started doing cultivation in the demonic form, which is where you're not supposed to go. There are certain rules of certain things that you shouldn't do because it could create more problems, or it's just an evil form of your energy and you don't want to go down that route. And turns out that he started using methods that were not approved, and it eventually led to his demise. And so it was such a rejoiceful thing when he like died, that now that he's alive again, he doesn't want people to know that he's alive. But there are certain people in the story that do figure it out, that they can just tell and that they know who he is. And he's really trying to keep it so that nobody finds out, because he knows then people will probably try to kill him again in his new form. And Lan Wangji is very protective of him, and he figures out way early on that who he really is. and that's why he's so protective of him, because he cares a lot for Wei Wuxian. He always had a soft spot for him, and we're just learning more and more about why that is, and he's just helping Wei Wuxian not die again, which is nice. And so, yeah, that is basically what happens in these first 2 books without going too far into spoilers of actual details of certain things. But this is only 2/5 of the story. We've still got 3 more books to go, and there's also a show that's on Netflix and Amazon Prime that is called The Untamed, and it is a live action drama based on these books. Like, these books inspired it, and so I do plan to watch it and do a comparison. And I think putting faces to these names is going to be really helpful for me, especially when they use the different versions of the names. Like, I'll be able to see who they're talking about, and I won't, if I forgot one of the names, it'll be easier to figure things out by watching it. So, because I want to see how it compares, how it adds up, because again, that's another adaptation that we're going to be getting, and I don't know if it is in Chinese with English subtitles or if it's in English, because I haven't looked into it any further than that yet. So, because that's also going to be another aspect of it that could be different from this even. And so, yeah, we're just gonna have another version of it, which I'm intrigued about. So anyways, if you have seen these, they are like really popular in Barnes & Noble. When I saw them coming out Barnes & Noble, I just chose this one because he has a guqin. He has, and then I believe Wei Wuxian's instrument is the diza, or it's similar to the diza. It's like a flute, a bamboo flute. And so I just, since I love music so much and I'm a music teacher, I was like, I'm gonna choose this one because they're holding instruments, and they use their instruments as like weapons sometimes, like the music, or it's how they communicate to the dead sometimes. And so I was intrigued enough with that, which is why I chose this series over the other series. So yeah, if you've seen them, if you've read these, then let me know what you think about them. But yeah, I will do another one when I've read 3 and 4, and then another video when I've read 5, so that I can have like an overall experience with this series and have the whole thing finished of their journey. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.